Hello and welcome back to Curmudgeon Media. My name's Tom and I have returned from the depths of my murky cave with but one thing on my mind. Infinity Train. So the Infinity Train Book 4 trailer has been released, which is good, but also Owen Dennis has confirmed it's the last season, which is sad. Either way, there was a time when we weren't even sure we'd get a fourth season. The show still rocks and I trust its creators to give us a satisfying conclusion to such a fantastic show. We now know that the two protagonists are a couple of guys, one named Min-gi and the other named Ryan. But I'll just cut to the chase. A lot of people, myself included, are speculating that their relationship might be a romantic one, and I would like to take this as an opportunity to explore that possibility and to talk a little more about the concept of representation as a whole. But before we do that, let's take a look at what we know. Before we jump into the trailer, let's revisit the synopsis. Two old friends must explore the inner puzzles of the Infinity Train and their relationship in order to return home together. I feel as though there are a few hints towards a potential romance here. Firstly, their relationship has been specifically flagged up as a core theme of the season. Secondly, the synopsis emphasises their togetherness as the goal in order for them to beat the train, so to speak. The trailer, link in the description, leans very heavily into their relationship. Min-gi and Ryan have known each other since they were kids. Hell, they're a heckin' two-piece musical duo. But there's obviously unresolved emotions between them. It seems as though they're not on the best of terms when the train appears to them. As the trailer points out, Min-gi and Ryan have the same number. This tells us that their journey to self-discovery is intrinsically tied in some way. There's obviously something about their relationship that they've yet to discover. So, romance? Okay, stay with me here, guys. Am I the only one detecting some repressed romantic tension here?
We're fine. We're great.
This whole thing gives off major She-Ra Catra vibes. You know, frenemies turned lovers. They say that they're best friends, but there's clearly something more going on here. This isn't all it has in common with Catradora though. Both may fit within the trope known as the childhood friend romance. You know, characters who've known each other since they were little, so they resist admitting some underlying romantic feelings. Sound familiar? Popular examples include Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable, Winry Rockbell and Edward Elric, Mei and Zuko, and so on. I may be clutching at straws, but these are just my observations. Regardless of whether or not we can draw any concrete conclusions, there's a broader context at play here. The issue of queer representation in cartoons is a complicated one. The Western animation industry may have come a long way in the last 10 years as far as that's concerned, but it still has developments that need to be made. That is what we're here to talk about today, folks. So pull up a seat, grab a comforting beverage of your choice, and get cozy. It's hard to talk about LGBT representation in cartoons without first talking about Rebecca Sugar. By hard I of course mean impossible, because Rebecca Sugar has done a lot of heavy lifting. Sugar's flagship series, Steven Universe, is a crucial moment in progressive animation. Noel Stevenson, the creator of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, puts it best in saying, "The conversations that we were having at the beginning of our plans for including queer characters and relationships was only possible because Steven Universe had done it first." Steven Universe gave us a delightful cast of non-binary characters with complex relationships. Although many of these characters are visually coded as feminine, the show is brimming with queer relationships, each one handled as sensitively as the last. Steven Universe is able to magically lift the material constraints that often serve to block genderqueer and agender representation in realist media. Rebecca Sugar basically uses humanoid aliens as a narrative device to explore this representation. Able to fuse and morph freely, Sugar actively distances gender identity from both the physical body and sexual desire. In their own words, we strategized the concept of fusion to be able to explore relationships and include queer relationships. Although Sugar has done so much for positive representation, it wasn't without studio pushback from Cartoon Network. Let's rewind the clock a little. By 2014, Sugar had created the characters of Ruby and Sapphire, who would be revealed as lovers. This relationship formed the fusion of Garnet, a major character in the show and an early linchpin in Sugar's plans to introduce queer relationships into the series. Once the studio discovered what Sugar was doing, this is how they responded. They told us point blank, you can't have these characters be in a romantic relationship. But at that point, Garnet was so established that audiences could instantly understand what the relationship was. The song had already been written, the episode had already been boarded, so we were already in full production. I want to clarify the corporate logic behind this kind of thinking. According to Sugar, the studio wanted to be supportive but were confined by the fact that certain countries wouldn't receive the show so well. If the show gets pulled overseas, it could kill the entire project. It's pretty well known at this point that queer representation really doesn't fly in China, for example. Meanwhile, Western animation studios often cater to these global markets, which puts a sort of tax on what they can and cannot do. The success of Steven Universe in spite of these constraints is a big reason the show was such a step forward. Support from fans was enough to keep it breathing with or without revenue from foreign markets. Sugar still had to find loopholes in order to squeeze this representation onto the screen in the first place. In an interview with Paper Magazine, they explain how they were able to get away with it without causing too much of an uproar because the characters were technically aliens. During Sugar's involvement on Adventure Time, similar measures had to be taken just to get Marcy and Princess Bubblegum together. But the steps taken by Rebecca Sugar allowed future creators to push the discourse even further. This is where Noelle Stevenson comes in with She-Ra. The world of She-Ra is prolific with queer characters, like Bo's two dads, Spinnerella and Natossa, Scorpia and Perfumer, and so on. In the final season, we get an overt romance between protagonist Adora and her nemesis-turned-ally Catra. Each of these relationships is loving and healthy and wonderful to see. Well, I guess the Adora-Catra situation takes several seasons before they're on loving terms, but you get what I'm saying. This is all fantastic, but just like Sugar, Stevenson was met with the same kind of pushback where they were told point blank they would not be able to do this. And for everything She-Ra achieved, the constraints placed upon Stevenson are still felt. Most of the queer relationships are relegated to supporting roles, and the major romance between Adora and Catra was only made overt in the final season. These aren't criticisms of the show, I'm just reiterating concerns Stevenson already addressed. In their own words, it felt like with that last season we were able to be open and clear about what we were doing, whereas in past seasons we had to obscure it with other language. The bottom line is, creators like Rebecca Sugar and Noelle Stevenson have done a lot, but there's always room for more. Whenever a show manages to incorporate a really powerful piece of representation, that clears the way for other productions. And that's where Infinity Train Book 4 could come into the picture. If the season really unpacks the relationship between Min-gi and Ryan, the romantic angle could be front and center. No more pushing it to the end of the season or hinting at it in the background. This could be one of many opportunities to take the discourse of queer representation even further in animation. Representation is a powerful thing. Images have power. Televised messages carry context beyond the face value of their images and sounds. They are infused with discourses which shape our worldview, language, and behaviour, as well as teaching us social norms from a young age. In other words, inclusive representation in film and TV has a huge impact on how we treat and appreciate the LGBTQIA community. Research shows that positive on-screen depictions of queer relationships can be instrumental to people's coming out process and their sense of identity. It's so much more than just recognising yourself in movies and TV. It helps people to feel less alienated, and it can be a massive influence on someone's mental health. And as for the less tolerant people out there, well, that can change, can't it? Noelle Stevenson describes it like this. It's about creating this environment and world where queer viewers feel very accepted and understood. Stevenson goes on to state, I see people talking about, oh, what are all these lesbians in cartoons doing? This is a trend, or why does every show have to have the one gay character now? It's unnecessary, and I'm afraid of that. I'm really happy to see it shifting, but there's so much to still be done. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video was informational in some way. If you have any thoughts you'd like to add, or you think I missed something important, please continue the conversation in the comments below. I know this wasn't like a comprehensive breakdown of the Book 4 trailer, but I've been working on this video for a while, and then the trailer dropped, and I had to rework the whole video last minute, and I just want to preserve my sanity. I will be back to talk about Infinity Train and other animated shows in the future. I sort of just go wherever my interests take me, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, guys.